Revenge films.
Back when I first got married, I was always nervous around my mother-in-law. We had such different personalities, and I would always get tired after spending time with her. She never picked on me or treated me badly. She didn't get too involved in my affairs, which was a relief. But she worked as a nurse for most of her life, so unlike me, she was always quiet and speedy. She worked so efficiently and would get everything done so fast whenever we went over. And it made me feel useless and depressed. She wouldn't show her emotions at all either. So I never knew what she was actually thinking, which made me even more nervous around her. I figured that she probably wasn't too fond of me, so I decided to keep a good distance from her. That fall, I had my second child. My mother-in-law wanted to see her grandchild, so we decided to visit for New Year's. But my mother-in-law said, "If you try coming over when it's busy, the baby will get tired. There's a 3-day weekend in January, so it might be better to come over then." We figured that she was probably right, and decided to avoid the New Year's traffic and visit in mid-January. That year, it was a 3-day weekend between January 14th to 16th, and the 17th was a weekday. My husband wanted to avoid the traffic, so he decided to take a day off of work on the 17th, so we could head back on a weekday. We spent 3 days at my in-laws' house, and I was nervous as usual around my mother-in-law. But my husband was enjoying a conversation with his father, and my 3-year-old son was getting along great with my mother-in-law. But my mother-in-law came up to me and said, "Jill, you must be exhausted, having to raise children while doing housework all the time. Take some time to relax while you're here." And even took care of my baby, so I was able to get a lot of rest. I was really grateful for everything. January 17th, 5:30 a.m. I heard some noises from the kitchen. When I went over, I saw my mother-in-law preparing food. She had prepared food every day for us, so that I could get rest while I was there visiting. "I'll pack this up so you can freeze it. It should last you a couple of days," she said. She had been up from 4 in the morning preparing this for me. She went on to say, "Breakfast is already finished, so sleep until you're ready to eat, Jill." But, as usual, I couldn't read her emotions, so I wasn't sure if she was being truthful or not. So I ended up standing speechlessly there in the kitchen for a while. Right then, I felt a big shake like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It was a giant earthquake. It shook so hard that neither of us were able to stand, so we both got on the floor. The shaking got even harder, and I could see the ceiling lights swaying back and forth. I heard things falling and crashing everywhere in the house. Then I heard a child's voice.
"Mommy! Where are you? I'm scared!"
I wanted to get to him right away. I'm on the way." I tried to get up, but the house was shaking so hard that I could barely stand even holding on to something. "Watch out, Jill! Get away from there!" I heard my mother-in-law shout. I looked up and noticed that the cabinet doors had opened. At the same time, plates and glassware started pouring out. The last thing I can remember is kneeling down with my hands over my head and something hitting me hard. I blacked out after that. I heard someone calling my name as I opened my eyes and noticed that the shaking had stopped. My mother-in-law was hovering over me, and there were broken plates and glasses everywhere. When the cabinet was about to fall on me, my mother-in-law had pulled me out of the way. I looked at her arms and shoulders that were protecting me, and they were covered in blood. "Are you okay, Jill?" She seemed concerned about me, but I was unhurt. I'm so sorry," I said, to which she replied, "Go get your child. Let's get out of here." She tried to get up quickly to get out of the kitchen when... Ouch! She moaned in pain as she grabbed her leg. Right then, my husband arrived at the kitchen with his father with the kids and helped us to the hallway to exit the house. I could tell that my mother-in-law was dragging her leg, and she had a cold sweat. The door was warped and didn't open easily, My husband tackled it a couple times and it finally opened. We all stood there in shock for a moment. It was like nothing we'd ever seen before. There was black smoke and fire everywhere. The sky was gray and hazy from all the smoke. My in-laws' house was one of the upper floors of a high-rise apartment. The elevators had stopped moving and the stairs were cracked. As we stood there panicking, we could feel big aftershocks. I could hear noises from all sides like I'd never heard before from the walls in the hallway. The cracks were expanding, and every time the building shook, you could hear something big falling and breaking. My son was bawling. It was just a matter of time before this building was going to completely be destroyed. That's when my mother-in-law said, "You guys, get out of here now!" She went back in to grab us our jackets. "And what about you?" I asked in tears. "I'll come afterwards. Don't worry about me. You guys, go now," she replied with a stern look on her face. I found out later that when she was protecting me, the cabinet fell on her leg. She avoided broken bones, but her bones were bruised, and she was hospitalized for 3 weeks. She figured that she would hold us back because she couldn't move very fast, so told us to go ahead. She wouldn't take no for an answer.
"If I leave you behind, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Here, get on my back!"
When my husband tried to carry his mother on his back, she slapped him. "Your job is to protect your children and wife. Your wife is still not in full health after her birth. And you guys have a baby. Just think about them," she yelled. She patted my head with her bloody hands and said, "I'm sorry for asking you guys to come visit. I truly am," and smiled. My father-in-law convinced us that he would bring his wife and follow, so I walked down the stairs with my husband and children. Later on, we were grouped at the shelter. I hugged my mother-in-law and cried with her for a while. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry," she said as she patted me on the head and hugged me. I apologized to her many times too. "I'm sorry too. Your leg, that was my fault." I also realized that she had brought us all jackets, but she was only wearing a thin sweater and an apron. She had also brought baby formula, a baby bottle, and a pot to boil hot water, as well as all the food that she packed for me that morning. My father-in-law had told her,
"Leave it all behind! We gotta get out of here!"
but she wouldn't listen. "I'll carry it myself. You can go ahead if you want." They ended up carrying all of that down the stairs of the crumbling apartment. After realizing once again how much she prioritized my family over herself, I cried again. After the unexpected tragedy, I stopped lactating. But thanks to my mother-in-law bringing the baby formula, I was able to feed my baby and keep her full. I am truly grateful. Also, there was a shortage of baby formula at the shelters, and I was able to share with the other mothers as well. And when I was sweating in pain because my breast milk wouldn't come out, my mother-in-law, who had worked in OBGYN, came to comfort me. "I know how bad it hurts, but if you don't get it out, it's going to hurt even more. I wish I could switch places with you," she said and cried as she massaged me. And all the food that she had packed for me was a great help too, because there weren't enough rations for everyone at first. My mother-in-law fed my children and the other children in the shelter. She also made sure I had enough food to produce breast milk for my baby. After that, "I've been away for a while, so my knowledge may be obsolete," she said and helped at the shelter as a nurse. She talked with the children and elderly people who were in pain or in shock and supported them. Their apartment collapsed a few days later. My in-laws lost a place to live, so we let them come over and stay with us. I've never seen my mother-in-law cry since that day that she had held me in her arms. But 16 years later, when another giant earthquake hit the country and was all over the news, I saw her crying as she watched the television screen. "That must have been so scary." My mother-in-law still doesn't show her emotions, but I know exactly what she's thinking. Thank you so much. I'll never forget how you protected me that day.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.